Hi, everyone, and welcome to another, I suppose, video lecture on Friday where we explore and look at kind of basic terms that we're going to need to further advance ourselves in the course. The reason we have it set up this way is mainly because when we get to the Wednesday live session, we don't have to do a lot of that like back work or the backtracking where it's like, okay, let's define another term. Let's go back and learn another term. We can just jump right in and have conversations about kind of formation of good, sound argumentation and really focus on the terminal end goal, which is to craft and develop good means of persuasion through persuasive forms of argumentation. And so today will be just something that you can leave on in the background and just some terms that we need to kind of cover and explore as they are just the foundational kind of requirements to know about. Most of you that have gone through any sort of like logical philosophy class or any sort of reasoning style based education will most likely know these terms. And so don't be upset if it seems a little bit redundant. I'm just making sure that everyone's on the same page so that we can continue to do some effort and some work together. And I will try to make it at least a little bit fun or a little bit interesting. Okay. So some terms we need to understand for good logical reasoning are just like basic styles of what goes into an argument. The first is going to be a premise. A premise is just going to be a previous or an initial statement from which all other forms of logic can be inferred. It is the start of your kind of logical argument. So I could give you a basic premise that I typically get lucky and have the greatest students each and every semester. There's always a good majority of students that always make me think to myself, I could be a better professor, I could do things a little bit differently, and all of those things that go into that. So I wouldn't look into a premise anything more than its initial kind of just part of the reasoning that goes into the overarching argument itself. Climate change is bad. Well, we can see that the initial premise is that climate change is bad. So what we can do from that is from the premises that we have crafted and created together, we can come to a conclusion. And so if you look at my example later on in the sheet, you'll see Aaron gets lucky and has the greatest students in the world. Aaron's other professors claim or make complaints about their students, which Aaron has never done. And Aaron's students on average get better grades than most other students. So therefore, we can make a conclusive statement that Aaron has the smartest students eventually in the world. We took a bunch of premises and then we came to a conclusion based upon those kind of initial statements or those kind of initial thoughts that we did it. How did we do that? We did that through the process of inference. And so we inferred based upon the initial premises. We looked at what the statements were and we came to a conclusion through that kind of reasoning that is put together. Now, the inference stage is where oftentimes logical fallacies come into play and a lot of illogical things of rationality like to hide themselves. It's also one of those things that's never really super easy to see. Sometimes it is if it's in a more legalistic setting and you can follow each of the premises and look at their past precedents to get a better understanding. But most of us live in a world where we make arguments that are a little bit off the cuff and the inference is sometimes just kind of assumed. It goes back to what we were talking about when we explored kind of the enthymeme or enthymematic understandings of knowledge and information that we have received. And so when we come and take the look at our example, we can see that I'm doing a lot of inference work here. And I am saying, okay, because I've never complained about students, which we're assuming is true, so Aaron's always telling the truth, he's never lying, and that Aaron continually gets lucky every time. So that means every semester, Aaron's always getting the best students. We are making a lot of kind of intuitive jumps that we're not necessarily exploring or putting into language because a lot of the inference statements go left unstated unless we start to unpack them ourselves. On Wednesday, we're going to look at a bunch of different kind of argumentative models that go into a way to analyze an argument that's going to ask you to unpack language, which can be a very tricky thing to do because language is fluid. When I say language is fluid, I always have to answer this kind of question. Language is fluid just typically means language is fluid. For those of you that take more philosophical driven classes, you will come to hear a word sometimes known as fluidity. And that is, it's that it's slippery and it has multiple modes of interpretation. And so whenever we say, for instance, I'm trying to rack my brain and think of a good example of this, is that justice is good. Well, we come to the basic understanding of what justice is, but we can only really ever apply it to a specific case that we're looking at by example. So when I say justice is good, everyone in here is like this, 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 this. And so if, for instance, I said, I'm going to fail a student that has turned in an assignment 10 minutes late, is that just? Well, a lot of us are going to be like, no, that's a little bit heavy-handed and overarchingly bad, even though if we wanted to take a stricter interpretation of justice of you must turn things in on time, then we would say then technically it could be, but most of us come to a better kind of like gut check understanding or nuanced understanding that's like, no, that's unjust because you're overtly following kind of like a lawful understanding of what a classroom space is and what a social contract is. And so kind of working in that world where language is going to be fluid and have kind of multiple modes of interpreting whether or not something's going to be true or not always comes back to our own kind of subjective standpoint, which we get a bunch of information from. And usually individuals that go to like universities, go to higher education standards, or spend a lot of time reasoning tend to come to the same conclusions based upon a lot of the data that they are preceded and given to them to kind of interpret and understand, which is why we can set up a system where we can come to those sort of like cooperative agreements of understanding how education leads us to come to similar kind of interpretations of a fluid language system, which has multiple meanings. So if I tell you, for instance, as another example, that I am fine today, you could interpret that as, okay, he said he's fine, which means he's not doing good. And most of the time people in small talk say they're doing good, which means he might not be doing great, or he's doing worse than he's letting on in that interpretation of a conversation. Or maybe Aaron's just doing fine. We take it at the word value of what it is. Or maybe fine means that there's something bad happening that's stopping him from becoming great. So maybe he's doing worse than we are originally assuming. And so we can take basic statements and have that kind of like fluid interpretation of meaning that goes back and forth to whatever it is we are trying to interpret at that moment. The example I gave in class was where we were walking a dog. Well, the dog is going to be different if I'm walking a Chihuahua versus walking a kind of bigger lab, for instance. That's two fundamentally separate experiences that are going to be different because language is fluid. Okay, now language isn't always fluid. Sometimes we like to come to assumptions in interpretation and heuristics that say language can't be fluid in this case. A large chunk of scientific knowledge and information and a large chunk of mathematics, we tend to think that there's no fluidity built into it. And that is something that we have to do so that science and mathematics can continue to function in a way that says, okay, this is correct. We are all agreeing upon it. And we can build upon that information and take kind of the linguistic understanding of the numbers and data to its next logical step and create more cool shit that we can have on an everyday kind of basis. And that's one of those things where that is an interpretation of the world. We all tend to have our own kind of ideological understandings and nuances and starting points that we use at different points in times, and being able to go into kind of those heuristic scopes is going to be good for you. Another word I use a lot that I just realized is heuristics. That just means it's a mode of interpretation. And so a heuristic that says, I am going to pretend that language isn't fluid and that everything means what it literally means, is a mode that sometimes we have to jump into and act upon as ourselves. Or we could be in a more like postmodern chill mode and be like, okay, language is super fluid and meanings are very hard to understand and we never fully understand the other person. Might be a mode you jump into at a different point in time that we need to kind of like weigh the pros and cons of those forms of analysis. But I am getting over the top here. I just wanted to have a kind of brief video today where we looked at a bunch of basic understandings of logical reasoning and how we come to kind of format arguments and create conclusions through the processes of premises, conclusions, and inferences. If you are able to do this, that is fantastic. And if you're able to break apart your own arguments that you're trying to make as what are my premises, what are my conclusions, what am I inferring here, what is being left out of the conversation, conversation, you'll have a better way to really understand whatever argument you are trying to advance out into the world. And also, you'll be prepared for whenever someone starts criticizing one of your inferences, for example. So next week, we're going to really spend a lot of time talking about logical fallacies, as well as some more models of analysis and argumentation and refutation. I just wanted to get these terms into the conversation a little bit earlier so that when we are jumping into it, we don't have to like backtrack and be like, okay, what is a premise? What is a conclusion? What is an inference? I really hope everyone out here is having a fantastic Friday. And if you need anything from me, please shoot me an email. I should be getting caught up or slowly getting caught up towards getting all of the grades turned in, which is the thing I will be doing for the next 4 hours of the day. So please let me know if there's any problems or anything that I can do to make your lives easier. Thank you.